Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 1524, A Living Nightmare. The irate mother was waiting in the arena when Carl arrived. Are you ready to admit defeat? Kneel before me and serve the PDA for 100 years and I may forgive you, she demanded. Did you read that line in a novel? It was a smutty novel, wasn't it? A genuine bodice ripper, sort of spicy evening read. Carl joked. Elder Socrate flew up to the referee's stand with Remy wrapped around his neck like a necklace and called down to them. If the contestants are done trash talking, we will get this started. Of course, Elder. I would hate to waste your time. The elder nodded and the woman drew her sword. Then Carl blocked off all energy in the area using mana suppression, before hitting her with overwhelming presence, dominating power, and pacifism. Her eyes glazed over and the sword dropped to the ground as her knees buckled. Then Carl started the illusion. Suddenly she found her child tugging at her sleeve, urging her for a kiss before school. Only she was wearing a hideous pink formless nightgown and her body was incredibly obese. Gone were her decades of devotion at the gym. She was back to her peak post-pregnancy weight, over 50 kilos heavier than she was now. Mommy, don't worry, I'm not embarrassed. You work so hard to get me to school on time. Here, I will help you to your feet. I know how hard it is for you to walk. The woman shrieked in terror as she stood, and the illusionary boy cried as she pushed him away. It's not real. It's not real, she stammered. Mommy, why did you push me? Carl teleported into her line of sight disguised as Ameldor. Ah, there you are. The headmaster would like to have a word with you. He believes that you might have been slacking on your duties as a mother as your son is failing his classes. He would like to speak to you about reassigning the chairmanship of the PDA while you take a few years away from stressful duties to focus on your health. No, this isn't real. I am the head. Nobody else could take my place. How dare he try to fire me? She waved her hand ineffectually and Carl created a layer of gravel over the sword she had dropped, hiding it from sight before she realized this was an illusion. Please, there is no need for a public spectacle. We can handle this privately. The immortals in the stands watched in horror as a respected member of the parental community had a full-blown mental breakdown, slapping at the fake wrath demon after she failed to activate any of her skills. Sleep and you will feel better in the morning. Carl put a heavy dose of mental domination behind the command and her eyes closed. In that instant, he changed the setting to a generic bedroom that he hoped was like hers and made the illusion nearly pitch black. Copying Ray's new skill, Undead Minions, he called forth a group of zombies to scratch at the windows. They were making a racket like they were trying to break in as the woman stumbled about in the dark, unable to see without a skill. The window broke and she screamed, then tried to run for her child's room. Only Carl hadn't made more rooms. The door was just a prop on the wall-shaped barrier that she struggled frantically with. For extra effect, Carl added the screaming of a child, zombies in the hallways, and then terrified pleading. Then he had zombies attempt to climb in her broken window. She smashed at them with a lamp, not even thinking to use items from her inventory, as Ray assisted Carl by directed the show, adding increasingly horrifying images until she finally had Carl call spectral knights with Undead Army to bang at the walls while the voice of the child screamed in agony and pleaded for his life. That was too much. The woman promptly passed out, soiled herself, and began rocking in the fetal position. Carl used disintegrate on the mess to preserve a bit of dignity for her as he looked up at Elder Socrate. How the hell should I know? Normally they hit each other. The elder muttered just loud enough for the crowd to hear. The challenger is unable to continue. This challenge is over, he announced in a louder tone. Carl let the illusion fade, but the woman didn't get up, just cried and rocked. Winning! Ray cheered. She had been waiting a very long time to do that. The other ladies of the PDA rushed in with the challenger's actual child to try to console her, but she just shrieked. "Zombie, they turned my child into a zombie. My poor baby. Mommy is with you, we can both go together. Stop her." Elder Socrate shouted as she called her blade to her hand and prepared a skill. Carl hit her with mana suppression and put an eternal lightning barrier over the child as the other women panicked. "Someone get her to the healers. She needs treatment fast. And for the love of all the gods, don't let her have any weapons," Elder Socrate demanded. Ray hopped into the arena laughing. "Well, that went wonderfully. I think that my idea for the scary things in the dark worked wonderfully." One of the PDA members turned to her. "This was your idea? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Ray nodded eagerly. "I am quite sure that our idea broke her without even laying a hand on her. If you would like, I can make a proposal to introduce it as an anti-bullying measure in the schools. I call it non-corporal discipline. I think that it will be the next big thing in mental fortitude training." Kara howled with laughter while Ameldor shook his head in dismay. "That was not at all how I thought that fight was going to go. I was certain that Carl was going to get publicly shamed for beating a woman with no notable combat skills. But this was something entirely different. To think her biggest fears were getting fat and seeing zombies. The Wrath Demon had completely missed the nuance Kara realized. "I think that it was the fat part that got to her. If she gives you trouble in the future, just ask her if she's put on a few kilos, then tell her you like her new outfit to soften the blow." Chapter 1525 PDA in Defeat. Elder Socrate turned to Carl now that the women of the PDA were out of the arena. "You might as well return to work unless you're planning a victory dinner or something. I have a very long meeting with the other elders about what should and should not be allowed in a duel. Mental skills are rare and permitted, but that combination of immortal rank illusions and mental skills is just nasty. They might request that you just slap her or something next time there is trouble for your little one at the school." Kara and Ameldor laughed. It was the woman's fault that she thought Kara was a real student and not just a young immortal taking remedial classes to cover things that she had never learned before. But there was also a good chance that she was going to get in trouble with the parents again. Carl laughed as he returned to the alchemy hall with Ray and Dana, while Kara remained in a reduced-size badger form to ride on Ameldor's shoulder back to the school. "The PDA moms are too dumb to connect the two, they won't even realize that it's me," she gloated. Elder Socrate sighed as he saw the smug look on the badger's scarred face. "The clan is about to get a lot more interesting, I feel. With that badger wandering around, there is no way that we're about to have calm days." Dana smiled. "Oh, I wouldn't worry too much about her. That's background chaos. Just wait until everyone starts showing up at the alchemy hall for equipment instead of the warehouse just because Carl is on punishment duty." The elder looked horrified. "That's right. Fighting while on punishment duty is an automatic extension. No, I can argue that he didn't actually fight, there was no hitting. Yes, that will work." He was idly rubbing Remus' hooded head as the Naga matriarch hung around his neck preparing herbs in her tiny hands. Remy had most definitely made a new friend, and it was only a matter of time before she dragged him back to her lab so that they could work on a new experiment together using familiar equipment. Though that might have to wait until she had learned whatever new techniques were common in the immortal worlds. There was a lot that Remy didn't know about immortal rank alchemy, and she had found the perfect person to teach her. As soon as they got back to the alchemy hall where dozens of immortals were lingering not in line but waiting for Carl to return, Dana knew that her warning about the alchemy hall's customer base was already too late. There was no time to prepare if the lineup was already present. "He's back. Everyone get in order," someone called, and Dana sighed. "You know what? I will be at the apartment with Ray." Carl nodded. "I will come back later to help with the upgrades. It appears that I have garnered a fandom." The people in line all laughed. In a way, Carl was right. Most of them wanted to place orders for equipment. "First up, who is here for something from the alchemy warehouse? If you have an order, please come to the front of the line." Carl called. Nobody moved. "Seriously? All right, start with your proposals. I'm sure that the fine ladies of the alchemy hall will appreciate me not causing trouble for their regular customers." One of the more powerful immortals held up his hand to stop the flood of questions before they started. He was ascendant in power, though not wearing the robes of an elder, and it seemed to earn him enough respect that nobody questioned him. First off, who is the tiny snake? Is she a friend of yours? Or did the elder find her somewhere? She is my bonded partner. Her specialty is alchemy, and she seems to be taken with the elder. Anyone who is willing to talk about alchemy for days on end is an instant friend to Remy. Carl explained. The man nodded. I thought that might be the case. I'm sure that someone will challenge her eventually to see where she ranks. But she's so small that it might be a while before anyone realizes that she's not a small child. Carl laughed. She really is a child. She never made it to adulthood before she evolved into a matriarch and her body size reset. If that's the case, I will post that she's off limits until grown. Only adults are on the Spirit Immortal ranking charts. Carl chuckled. Technically, Kara isn't fully grown yet either. But she doesn't mind if people challenge her. She has a social experiment ongoing and she needs data. The immortal looked confused. What sort of social experiment could a chaos badger possibly be running? She's trying to taste test every species at every rank to form a comparative chart of taste versus power level. How is that going? She got her face scarred while taste testing a demigod, but other than that it's been going very well. The customers all chuckled at the thought of the badger actually licking a demigod. They could definitely see it happening. Now back on topic. It has come to our attention that you are a skilled tradesman. You are likely aware that the New Home Merchant Clan is not primarily a crafting organization. We are also not primarily a combat clan, though we train all sorts of guards and others who work for the merchants. So we tend to be more than a little short on gear when we head out into the world. There are multiple trial grounds nearby and some dungeon instances. However, we often get out competed for them by the groups from Kondim or the Almixii sect. They're a purely combat-focused group, and despite the name they're not systemless sorts. They all use the local system classes and only recruit advanced combat classes with high potential. You would think that limits them, but they've got over 20,000 immortals among their acolytes. For that reason, we are hoping that you can at least produce weapons for the clan. If we're going to challenge them for access or fight them off once we're inside a shared secret space or trial ground, we need better equipment to make up for our lack of combat focus. Carl nodded. I understand the issue. However, I am a new immortal. I simply don't have the capacity either in skill or finances to turn out a huge number of weapons for the clan. If I could mass-produce gear, I'm sure that Elder Malcolm would be my new best friend. The visitors laughed at the thought of Malcolm's excited expression if someone told him that they could send out whole ships full of crafted gear at wholesale prices. The man loved profit more than his own wife. That was why he was twice divorced. Chapter 1526 Trickle-Fed Supply. Carl cleared his throat. However, I suppose that I can slowly make some weapons for those who are leading teams. Is that how it works? I was told the basics by Jeff the Divine Lightning Dragon that everyone usually goes out in groups with a few strong immortals and an assortment of weaker ones so that they can reach all areas of the trials. The spokesman nodded. That's right. The elder or group leader fights the challenge to see who will go in first. All the opportunities are time and visitor limited. So if you lose and have to go last, you've almost definitely missed out entirely. And we are a common target for the challenges as we have so many newbies. New Home describes our people well. Only the elders and a few others have been immortals for more than 100 years. The rest of the clan is young and newly arrived, not generational legacy immortals from this world. Great, they were the transfer students of the world. Is there a generic template that I can use, a bonus set that most will like? Or is it too individual? Carl asked. Honestly, immortals usually fight without crutches like a full set of gear. There simply isn't enough of it to go around. It's too easy to break, and nobody focuses on crafting to progress their path. The forging-related and alchemical paths to supremacy are simply too difficult to fund and understand for most. So if it's better than this, it's better than most of the other clan's fighters will have. He placed an uncommon grade sword on the counter, and Carl resisted the urge to roll his eyes. This was the sort of thing that he sold for trash at mythic rank. How bad could the drop rates be in this world? They said that there were dungeons and hidden trial grounds here. They should be getting 1 or 2 items better than this every time they visited. Even if there were challengers, they should be able to distribute better gear. But that led him to an even more important question. If this was what they were using, what sort of trash were they selling? This was a merchant clan. They needed to have some sort of trade goods. Alright, I'm sure that I can work out something, but it takes time to source materials and have a proper weapon made. I can only upgrade a weapon that isn't already a system-linked magical weapon, and am not a weaponsmith. So if you want them, there will be a delay while I obtain them and upgrade the weapons to my standards. However, I do have a few of my own connections. I can produce at least 1 weapon significantly better than that one every week, Carl explained. The men in the room sighed. So if we all placed a request now, it could be half a year before we all got them. Carl shrugged. Give or take. Now if you can find me weapons that are already made of immortal rank materials at an exceptional skill level, I can turn them into rare grade magical weapons much more quickly. Perhaps even 3 or 4 a week. Why should he do all the hard work when there was a whole clan available? I think that we can find what you need. There are many bladesmiths in this world who specialize in making weapons that bond to their wielders. Ones that do not need to be upgraded as the wielder grows. They're considered to be much more valuable than a standard weapon, as the material allows them to grow from their base form. However, they are not system-linked magical weapons. Carl shrugged. I've never seen one, but if you are right, then I should be able to improve them, and they will still scale with level thanks to their materials. In fact, I will accept them as payment for the upgrade as well. Bring the one that you want upgraded and another for the improvement fee. That's a steep price. I will offer you one to upgrade too. Carl nodded. Understandable. I agree. Find me the weapons and I will do the work. The immortal made a grand gesture and 3 swords appeared on the counter. A short and long sword in the same straight-bladed single-sided style and a broad-bladed cutlass. I am assuming that you want these 2 upgraded? I can see that they are magical due to their materials but not linked to the system. There shouldn't be any issues with the process. Carl agreed. How soon can you have it to me? There are 4 days before my next event. I need weapons for it. Carl thought about it. I have a bit of time to finish on my punishment. If it's slow here, I will take the night off and finish the blades for you by tomorrow evening. The immortal sighed in relief while everyone else stared at the ostentatious show of wealth that he had just dropped on the counter. He had that sort of loot on him all this time and wasn't even using it? If it were them, they would have bonded the weapons immediately and started trying to level up their power. They certainly wouldn't have had them just lying around waiting for some super rare skill to come along and find a way to make them even better. Carl picked up the cutlass first and examined the materials while admiring the huge flat surface it had to write on. This was even better than a spear. If he wanted to add bonuses to this, there would be no issues at all. Alright, what sort of bonuses would you like? I hear that some classes can't use 2 weapons with the same bonuses. So let me know if you have restrictions or particular needs. I can work with what you need and come up with a specialized custom order. The onlookers sighed at the extravagance. But for the price, it was only reasonable that it would be made to order at least as much as the artisan could. I am a ninja by class. Do you have the ability to add something like Shadow Ambush to the blade, something that will allow me to launch an attack without the energy activation immediately before the attack giving me away? He asked. Oh, I think that I can come up with something for ambushes. And it will help you for the rest of the fight as well. Chapter 1527. What skill is right? Carl's idea was to make a fresh new skill for him, but one that both Dana and Ray would appreciate once he was finished with it. If he combined Shadow Step, or Teleport with Invisibility, or Ghost Beast, he should get an ambush skill that allowed instant movement either while remaining unseen or with the ability to move through walls. All of the options were good ones, so Carl started to mentally formulate the spell, while he put the weapons away, and the others in the room started to plan how they were going to obtain more of the weapons to bribe Carl with. Immortal craftsmen had very little motivation to make things for others most of the time. If they were truly poor, they would sell things that they made, but that was usually at a market or to the hall. They rarely took custom orders unless they wanted something very specific in return. In Carl's case, they knew what he wanted: weapons that grew with their wielder. The crowd began to disperse, so Carl kept working on the new skill while sketching plans for the basic runes to go on the weapons. The customer was a ninja, so he was a fast-moving stealth rogue-type class. Bonuses to stealth and agility seemed more important than standard damage bonuses, but Carl decided to add one more item, just make them spicy. Ambush damage to targets. It would give the first strike a huge burst of damage, even if it didn't matter for the rest of the battle. Ray nodded in appreciation. Ambush damage was excellent. But she thought that, instead of a new skill, Carl should give the weapon Devastate. Devastate strikes dealing more than 10% of the target's health do double damage. With that and ambush damage, that first strike would rapidly turn into an instant kill skill. She could just have Carl add the new skills to weapons for her to use in humanoid form. No need to give them to strangers. Carl edited the runes for the weapons. If he put Devastate on one weapon and Shatter on the other to cause bonus damage on hit, then link the two, the bonuses would resonate, and in theory you should get an extra bonus for using both at once. The alchemy shop workers silently stared at the runes Carl was scribbling all over the page, wondering what language it was in. Then he took out the two blades and began drawing on them with a paint pen, the sort that blacksmiths use to outline cuts. That seemed strange, and the paint shimmered in the light as Carl drew all over the weapons. Seemingly satisfied, he put the weapons away 3 hours later. He didn't want to finish them in front of others, but he could tell that the final effect should be just what he wanted. A resonant set of blades to be used as a pair. Just after dark, the others left and Carl was alone with just the bunnies in the building, so he took the blades back out and used Ghostfire to etch the runes into the blade. The paint wouldn't be enough at immortal rank, they had to be permanent to take the right effect. A final flow of mana caused the lights in the alchemy hall to flicker, and Carl learned that runecrafting evolving weapons of this grade was far more mana-intensive than even mythic weapons had been. Weapons created: the Spider's Greeting Epic Grade 2 Weapon Set. Pieces 2 halves. Base damage scales with affinity to bonded user. When both are equipped, all attacks that do over 10% of a target's health deal double damage. All strikes cause 50% additional damage as internal damage against living targets. Increases agility by 450. Increases stealth by 10%. Elder Socrate came out with Remy wrapped around his arm and stared at the weapons on the counter. That is impressive, and it only took you half a day to make the two of them. Carl nodded. I will give them to him tomorrow evening or the morning after. The alchemist elder chuckled. Tactical. I like it. Your friend the Naga has been a most wonderful lab assistant. She has proven incredibly adept at turning potion recipes into pill form for easy transport and longer storage times. Her runic alchemy technique is remarkably adaptable. I must say, it was like she was born to work in the immortal worlds. Her skills simply can't show themselves in the mortal realms. Carl smiled. I'm just glad that she made a friend. Socrate chuckled. Remy has made many new friends. She even got herself some specialized immortal rank equipment to make new recipes in exchange for her specialty products. That hair regrowth cream is a huge hit, and it even works on immortals. You have no idea how much of a shock that was. Very few things will actually work to change an immortal's body from what it has settled upon. However, there is a hint of the fundamental rules in that cream, and it worked. I had expected her to go for something grand and flashy, but going for the most practical possible option makes sense as well. Just imagine how handsome our elders are going to be compared to everyone else's. The next time that they go out on a mission, they will be the envy of every other clan. Carl joked. I'm certain that they are already planning their victory speeches. Remy slid down the elder's arm to stand on the table in front of Carl. It's not all that we did. I made a whole new type of healing pill with runes, and it's amazing. Do you know how hard it can be to get people to drink a potion when they're unconscious or their throat is cut? But the pill I can just stick in any orifice and it will dissolve. Elder Socrate chuckled. We tested that, by the way. Don't ask. But it was effective. Chapter 1528 Perfect Timing. A customer came in and Carl waved him forward before realizing that it was the man who had commissioned the blades. Blades that were currently sitting on the counter. Well, this is awkward. I was going to make you wait a day for dramatic effect, but I got them finished just a few minutes ago. Carl greeted him. Half a day? That is impressive even if you devoted every minute to improving them. They're a set now? That is an interesting technique. However, the stats on them are crazy. Even if you tried for 2 separate weapons, this would be beyond what most epic weapons could achieve. That looks like the Devastate epic grade skill on them as well. With that and Backstab, which grants me bonuses to the first strike, I think that this should be just what I needed. The internal damage is also challenging to heal, as many will not realize they have taken it until they try to move. It doesn't leave an external wound, and the strike just needs to land to apply it. It's one of the few effects that can reliably bypass most basic barriers. However, it doesn't do anything if your strike is parried, and it doesn't bypass damage reduction. Carl explained. So it will damage through an energy barrier? Carl nodded. Most types of them, yes. You can test it if you would like. I will refund you if it isn't satisfactory. Elder Socrate laughed. Even without that, it's already worth the price paid. Agility and strength on a scaling weapon with Devastate? That's pushing the limits of luck to get from a standard drop. True, and they're exactly the weapon style that I wanted, so I really can't complain. Now I just need to bond with them and the base damage should begin to increase. I will return to my rooms and see you all in a few days when I come to stock for the next outing. The moment that the man left, another ascended rank elder of the clan came in with a suspiciously bright smile on his face. Craftsman Carl. Good evening. Carl nodded politely. Elder, I suspect that you are not here for alchemical reagents. Indeed. I also have a pair of weapons and a most curious chestplate made of the same materials. It isn't well suited to my frame, but it might fit your wife well. He placed the 3 items on the counter, and Carl saw that the chestplate was actually made of tiny interlocking scales. It created a vest more flexible than chainmail and incredibly light but solid enough that it would block any sort of attack with decent efficiency. Oh, I think that she might like that. It's well suited to her fighting style. The elder nodded. Yes, I watched her match, and her agility is incredible, far beyond most battle mages. So when I heard that you were able to do these sorts of upgrades, I immediately thought of this piece. Very considerate. I like customers who keep my needs in mind. Now what can I do for you? Do you have a preference for your weapons? The elder sighed dramatically. Unfortunately, these are not for me. I have an ancient divine weapon, a demigod-ranked blade. These are for my personal disciples, a pair of paladins. Oh, paladins are perfect. I have quite a few options that are perfect for them. Tell me, are they designated tanks for group outings thanks to their class? You say that like paladins have a choice. They're the tanks for boss fights, the champion designate for access challenges, and the guardian for clueless newbies that we have an interest in keeping alive. Carl smiled, and the elder winked at him. Folks like you and your Dana mage. Or those brats from the academy. Their parents get all huffy if they get wounded, like being born here makes the world less dangerous for them. Alright, if they're defenders in the broadest sense, I will specialize their weapons for the purpose. I have been informed that most people don't go out fully armored here, so putting defensive skills on the weapons shouldn't be too outlandish. The elder looked curious. What do you usually wear in your mortal world to go traveling? Carl shrugged and activated bestial raiment to equip a set of armor. That is impressive, I will give it that much. An epic grade immortal rank armor set. Or is that a skill? But the moment that anyone saw you, they'd assume that you were there to cause carnage, and they would team up against you. Have you ever heard of the concept of playing the pig to kill the tiger? Carl shook his head. Not the saying, but I think I get the idea. Make yourself look like prey, then slaughter them when they least expect it. The elder smiled. Not usually that bloodthirsty, but yes. Though they don't restrain their aura, everyone puts on their friendliest expressions and dresses well, but not too well. It makes everyone else guess what their intentions are and just how well equipped they are. Ray liked this man, he understood how the world worked. Carl thought about reminding her that she was not exactly subtle about her appearance. But she did apply the standard to the equipment that she made for everyone else, so Ray did at least understand the concept. She just didn't agree with following it for herself. The 2 theories of success. Stealth or heavy stealth? Carl joked, relaying Ray's thoughts to the elder. Heavy stealth? If there are no survivors, you were not detected. The elder's laughter made a few of the alchemists look out from their rooms on the upper floors. That sort of loud laughter rarely ended well for whoever it was directed at. But this time it sounded genuinely amused. Carl stared at the pair of swords and began to sketch ideas for the paladins. What do you think about giving the blades something like blessed item to buff a consecrated ground effect? For paladins, that's the all-in-one super ability. But on a sword it can be effectively passive when you're in combat. If I just add some bonus damage and life leech to it, that gives them everything that they could possibly ask for all in one spot. What is consecrated ground? I'm not familiar with the effect. Carl took out a copy of the skill book that had been made to bribe clerics and paladins with. It was both Thor and Tessa's favorite spell after all. Consecrated ground, epic grade holy defensive ability. Reduces damage taken by 30%. Increases all damage done by holy attacks by 30%. Deals constant holy damage to targets in range. Oh, now we're talking. Chapter 1529 was that Carl put the book away and added the spell to the list of effects that the blades would need. It was really not a large list. The spell took care of nearly everything, but it would only work for those with a holy element magic affinity. As he was arranging the runes, the elder turned to leave. Then he turned back to stare at Carl. Wait, that was a skill book. An actual functional skill book for an epic grade paladin skill. Yes? Where did you find that in a mortal world? Oh, that's easy. We taught inscription to a large portion of the Dragon Church. When paladins have the ability to write skill books, eventually you will get most of the super rare skills recorded. Then the blue dragons can make more copies. The issue is that they're extremely difficult to copy and take forever. But you do have a copy, which means that there is a chance that it could be duplicated by the inscriptionists we have here. The elder contended. Yes, I would say that is possible. I could even loan them the book. It's easy enough to copy it without using it if you know the technique. The elder's eyes went vacant for a moment as he sent a system message. The skill library elder will be over soon. I see that you're on punishment for something, so you must not have been to see him yet. Carl covered his chest and sighed dramatically. It's all a huge misunderstanding, you see. I wasn't informed that the rules on using force in the clan compound were limited to the ones actually fighting and not everyone who came with them. The elder shrugged. 50 hours well spent to get the chance to beat the stupid out of them. You know, when you look at it that way, it makes so much more sense. The rules seem silly as they were clearly there for a fight. But I suppose the elders don't want to encourage it, so they just punish everyone involved in such an incident. The elder grinned. The punishment is also discretionary. Picking a fight and losing will get them time for disrupting the peace. It's all very political, you see. Plus, the elders feel that too many of the members lack humility. You shouldn't have too many more issues. You've made many friends among the elders and excursion leaders already, and that will only grow as more of them get an actual chance to purchase your specialty items. It's always good to make friends. Here I can't count on just being able to beat everyone who causes me issues. But that reminds me of a question I had. Just how much does power scale as you progress through Ascension? When I make items, I see them listed as Immortal 1/50th, but those before Ascended Immortal status aren't all that much stronger than I am, double at most. That can be difficult to understand at first. The first steps are largely technical, related to your understanding of the immortal realm. They're very close to the common and awakened stages of the mortal realms. Then Ascended runs all the way to the equivalent of Mythic. A peak immortal like Elder Fersham is hundreds of times stronger than someone who has just taken the first step into the Ascended stage, and they're a few times stronger than the average person who hasn't. I have never seen a 1 to 50 rating method before, so it might be related to gear quality. However, if you think of every step as a 50 to 100% increase in power, then each of the 50 steps could be used to lead you to peak immortal. I'm not entirely clear, I'm not a peak immortal, but that should be close. Carl nodded. That makes sense. A lot of things are rated differently by the system when it comes to gear. I've never seen the fractional notation before, so it could be related to the fact that Immortal covers such a huge group of equipment qualities. That's no joke. 2 epic-grade Immortal weapons could have a base damage rating weight. I think I know that it really means. The difference between a base Immortal blade's unmodified damage and the worst Supreme ranked weapon's base damage is about 50 times. By the time that you get to Supreme Ranked gear is a bit of a joke. It's such a small addition that most don't even bother with it unless it adds a percentage of base stats. I will keep that in mind. Percentage bonuses to stats are the way to go. When I'm crafting items, I will try to make them with that instead of the flat stats that I have been aiming for. Is that possible? Because even a 10% boost to my base strength is 200 points. Though I am one of the stronger, so if you can add more than that, then your sales to the clan would be better with flat stats. Carl laughed and set the last ring of titanic strength that he had made on the counter. I think that I underestimated just how much of a boost the strongest immortals would get from good gear. That's a quarter of my base added and another 10,000 strength from the percentage. By the gods, Titanic is no joke in that name. I really would be on par with a Titan's strength wearing that. Kara wandered in the door with a smile. You only have 2,000 strength? Is that a human thing? Because I nearly have that much and am new. You also have innate invulnerability which humans don't. You can't compare a badger's stats to those of us mere humans. Kara laughed. True. Carl, give me that ring for a minute, I need to do a thing. Does it involve giving the ring to Ameldor and then challenging him to another fight? It does now. Carl tossed her the ring as the elder sighed. You can't just point the badger at random elders when she gets bored. That's not a random elder. He's a wrath demon. Do you think that there is anything he wants more after a long day of teaching students than a good fight with a chaos badger? I should go make sure that the barriers are refreshed on the arena. Chapter 1530 Giant Badger. He wasn't nearly fast enough. The sound of collisions shook the air around the compound only seconds after he left, and Carl mentally checked in on Kara. She had used Greater Beast Form and Behemoth to turn her into a 6-meter-tall badger, now larger in every dimension than her wrath demon opponent, who was buffed up by his new ring. The battle was shaping up to be an epic one, as the arena was shaking with the barriers up, and they hadn't even gotten serious yet. Kara had fully buffed herself for this fight. She had even used haste, brutality, and warbeast to fully armor and enhance herself, though the armor was hidden under the hide of her badger form. Even with all that, Ameldor was still stronger than she was now that he had such a huge buff to his stats, and Kara was not going to win by overwhelming force, but they had also agreed not to use weapons or offensive skills. Only their own claws and buffs. Are you not going to go watch the fight? One of the clerks asked quietly as Carl began to work on the swords for the paladins. Nope, you can go though. Call it a paid break as long as you're back in 15 minutes. I won't tell anyone. The clerk looked longingly at the door, then nodded. It's not neglecting my duties. Nobody will be here for alchemy herbs until after the fight. If we can hear it from here, then half the clan knows that something is going on. Precisely. Go have fun. The last of the staff members who stayed in the front left, and Carl started to draw on the swords with a paint pen. It was better to work when there was nobody around, but after only a few seconds he saw bunnies poking their heads out from the back room. Today had been slow for actual customers, and they were missing the snacks that Carl had handed out so freely yesterday. No customers, so everyone is on break. Here, take these and pass them around. They're a failed batch, so I can't vouch for the taste. Carl warned. They even had a failed batch label on them, but as to why they had failed he couldn't tell. If they were actually toxic, Lotus presumably would not have put them into storage in the Tiny World's cupboards. It had been enchanted with a preservation spell by Lotus, using nature magic to keep the food fresh without freezing it. You know, you're pretty alright, the bunny whispered as she returned to the others. You don't have to be afraid to talk around me. If there is nobody else here, we're not in public. That's the rule, right? Mortals don't speak in public? The bunny nodded. Nobody wants to hear what we have to say anyhow, so it works out fine. But you're different. Friendly but not creepy. Maybe because you have a fox wife? I agree, some of these immortals need to get laid more often. The bunny giggled and held up the tray of cupcakes. Thank you for this. We've made great progress this week just using the resources that you've provided. Of course. I will be sure to keep sending them even after my time at the counter is over. Miss Remy will be here all the time and she can deliver them as well. The snake is scary. Carl smiled. She's not going to eat anyone. She's not big enough to anyhow. But you never know what she will make you drink. She's got a very frightening mad scientist vibe. She hasn't even talked to her yet, and she has Remy pegged. Hawk joked. The Naga couldn't even deny it. The bunnies were perfect test subjects. They weren't allowed to say no. Not that she intended to hurt them. Quite the opposite, really. But nobody trusted her new concoctions, and it was not easy to get people to test them out if they didn't come from one of the established recipes that the elders could vouch for. It was horribly limiting, even if Elder Socrate was glad to help her learn and refine her new techniques. What good was learning new things if nobody was going to use them? Carl finished setting up the runes on the first sword, then made a couple of alterations that would increase the output while allowing the sword to channel its own energy for the consecrated ground effect. Having that effect active at will without cost to the user would be perfect for the paladins. They had enough to worry about on their own, and they didn't need a blade that caused them even more mental stress and mana use. The blade glowed with bright white holy light as Carl finished it, so he quickly put it in storage before it attracted attention. Well, more attention, because there were a half-dozen bunnies watching at the door to the back room, enraptured by his skills. Then he started work on the second one, which went much more smoothly without the need to make alterations. That would turn them into a matched pair, and they were designed to grow with their user, so they would be with the paladins for a very long time, assuming nothing drastic happened to their wielders. Perhaps that was the reason that so much was lost. The immortals regularly fought and killed each other, so whatever was in their inventory would vanish with their final death. They didn't wear most of their valuables or keep them in a storage item unless their inventory was full. So every death caused an unknown number of valuable relics to be lost forever. It was a tragedy for the overall power level of the immortal worlds, but in a way it really was a self-regulating system. The immortals weren't sitting on mountains of loot because so much of it vanished with every kill. That kept power scaling from getting out of hand and kept people with eternal lifespans interested in doing the things near home instead of getting bored after collecting all the good stuff and going out to cause trouble for others. Perhaps the gods knew what they were doing when they designed the system. Chapter 1531, The Natural Order. The battle between Ameldor and Kara dragged on so long that the staff from the alchemy hall was back before it ended, unwilling to push their luck and extend their break any further past the half-hour mark. They had already taken lunch, and their pay would be docked for the extra time that they were gone. Fortunately, there still weren't any people in the hall, though the bunnies were lingering by the door, so the staff suspected that Carl had gotten a rush while they were gone. He was good at the job no matter why he was doing it, so they weren't too concerned. They were more envious that the fluffy assistants seemed so taken with him. How much good luck could one man have? There was a male bunny at the door looking out hesitantly to make sure that they hadn't missed any customer orders. Mona had always wanted to pet those fluffy black ears, but he was a master at vanishing after he had dropped off the orders. Carl watched her gaze and smiled. Is there a particular reason that the bunnies are chosen to do all these behind-the-scenes tasks? There are so many of them in the clan, like someone has a particular taste. Mona froze as the unexpected question short-circuited her brain. Did Carl know nothing about the bunnies? It's nearly impossible to reach immortality for their species. You see, they follow a fertility god whose dominion is the mortal realm. They have many children grow old and die. The natural way for mortals. Because of their goddess nature, the immortal realm will pull them up to the totem or mythic realm at the very most. Often they don't even get halfway up the mortal realm rankings before they grow old. But they're just too adorable for anyone to want to get rid of them, so they have become a somewhat permanent fixture here in the New Home Merchant clan. At first it started as you expected. Someone abducted 100 bunny girls for unsavory purposes. Then he was killed, and his bunny girl harem was taken by one of the elders here. The elder quickly realized his mistake, as all that they want is to be helpful and live family lives. They get horribly depressed if you keep them in a harem compound away from mates and children. So he made them servants for the clan and brought in a few male bunnies. That was maybe 1,000 years ago. Now we've got enough bunnies that they run all the behind-the-scenes operations within the clan. They don't get enough recognition for their contributions. There isn't anything that they're not doing to keep the clan running. The only positions they don't hold are the senior ones. The chefs who finish the dishes with mystic cooking are all immortals, but the line cooks and prep workers, the majority of the gardeners, the delivery runners, the supply clerks, even the laundry service. It's all bunnies. So if it's not public interactions, it's them. I get it now. And I also understand how appealing fluffy ears can be. However, that particular bit of fluff is off limits. He's married. Carl joked with a pointed look at the man standing by the door. Mona looked offended. What sort of thing are you thinking of me? You know I have a foxkin wife, right? The other staff members giggled. If anyone understood Mona's obsession with cute and fluffy ears, it was definitely Carl. Why don't I find you an available young man? I hear that there is a symbiotic growth technique in the immortal world which has become quite popular. Mona clapped her hand over his mouth. That's not the sort of thing that you speak of in public. Oh? So it's something naughty. I should have known that it would be a lewd technique. The immortals go all out when they think of new and fun ways to grow their powers. I had originally thought that it was like a short-term version of the soul bond that I share with Dana. Did your old world not have anything like it? I mean, not for power growth purposes. But we had developed quite a few lewd techniques. How do you think I got such a lovely wife? You are a menace to society. I've been told that many times in the past, yes. Fortunately, I have Kara to keep everyone's expectations in check. Their joking was cut short when the elder who had just commissioned the two blades rushed in with a pair of burly wrath demon paladins. Do you have the weapons ready yet? I know you said tomorrow night, but I also know how long it actually takes a runecrafter if they don't have to make a new plan for the layout. You're in a hurry, I see. Might I ask why? Jean's group was ambushed on the way back from their excursion. They're currently trapped in a clearing and don't have the power to defeat the sect. I can't go as an elder. It would just lead to a fight with their sect's elders. So there are some rules? Common courtesy. We don't interfere with fights between the younger generation unless it's an outstanding grudge or the deliberate targeting of a personal disciple. Now do you have the weapons? I do. But I'm going with you. Give me 30 seconds to collect my... Oh, there she is. Elder, these are Ray and Dana. Kara is on her way over now that the fight with Ameldor has completed for the day. We will all go assist. You don't have your immortal spirit completely formed. The elder warned. Don't worry too much about that. My system just needs a little motivation to get growing. Plus, what are the chances I will lose a fight under the Ascended? Rank? The two paladins shrugged. Send the almost human and the fox. They'll add numbers to our response and we won't have to search for extra members. I'm sure that they have enough skills hidden that they can hold their own. Fine. I will open the portal now. It's 1 kilometer east to the location where our group is pinned down. Good luck. Ray smiled at the elder. What are the rules on bringing back trophies? Leave the bodies for their clan to collect if they can be resurrected. If they can't, you can keep them. That was excellent news. Chapter 1532-1 Jean Rescue. The portal opened and Carl's group followed the pair of Wrath Demon Paladins through. That was a strange thing to think, much less hear someone say out loud. However, they really were paladins by class, even if their skills seemed to lean heavily toward fire and destruction. It must be a peculiarity of the local system. The species couldn't get the class at all on Carl's homeworld. Stay behind us while we greet them. Once we have joined the fight, you join as well. It's a formality to keep the elders from getting involved. If they know that we're part of the same group, they have no business stopping us. Running through the woods with Hawk on his shoulder and Kara right behind him, Carl shifted left of the group while Dana moved right. That put them in a fan-shaped position behind the enemies who were surrounding Alicia, the half-elemental berserker, and Jean, who looked much worse for wear. Just turn it over and we let you live. Don't be stupid, it's too valuable to be lost entirely. The man was demanding. Jean smiled at him. I will scour it in the holy fire of the afterlife before I hand it over. As you wish. That was the paladin's cue, and the two demons roared while Carl and Dana both called for support. Carl called Dark Elven High Priestesses as his epic golems, while Dana called Dark Elven Kings, who were fighters instead of healers. Then Carl and Ray both called on Spectral Knights and a small army of skeleton warriors for backup using undead minions. Carl had to try not to laugh as he realized that all his skeleton warriors were skeletal hounds with metal teeth. That wasn't a normal use of the spell, he assumed. But he also hadn't specified. You think that you can rescue your friends from us? Well, then you can die with them. The arrogant young man in vibrant yellow robes declared with a grand gesture for his underlings to attack. There were 50 of them to the 2 surviving members of the other group and the 6 members of the rescue team. The elder must have had great confidence in the paladins. Or he didn't realize that nearly everyone in the other group was dead already. That seemed more likely. Carl sent the priestesses to bring back who they could with a mass resurrection spell and some healing. That was the primary reason for the choice. That and the fact that they got along well with Ray's spider golems who leapt over the battle with the priestesses on their back to deliver them to the necessary location. A large group of agile immortals wielding short twin blades came for Carl, giving him only a split second to see their interface. All the names were yellow, so rogue-type classes he assumed that he could deal with. War Beast shifted Carl into a massive armored world dragon. That stopped the attackers for a split second, long enough that the undead had a chance to charge into combat. Dana had 4 clones of herself active along with the pair of elven kings, and they were quickly driving the attackers back, giving themselves room to reach the survivors while Ray filled the gaps behind them with her army. You've had your chance to run. Make peace with your god. Carl taunted the attackers right before he unleashed the breath of a world dragon on them, laced with randomize. He had no clue what was going to happen, but Kara was absolutely certain that it was going to be entertaining. Barriers flashed into existence and weapons shattered as the corrosive effects of the breath weapon hit the attackers. Then the plant life around them began to grow and horror overtook their expressions. Frantically they threw themselves out of the area of effect, preferring to face the undead. Oh, that is good. We only got one, but it's enough. Kara laughed. The stricken immortal had been too slow to get his barriers up, and his body was currently undergoing a violent transformation into what appeared to be a half-dozen species at the same time. Mutually incompatible species. Seconds later the effect ended. But what was left could not be called a human corpse. There was nothing left of the original form, only a mass of twisted flesh and extra limbs in improbable locations. That was not what had caught Kara's attention, though. In the middle of the battlefield, growing tall and proud, was a vibrant white chaos lily, an immortal rank flower and an alchemy reagent of incredible potency. She had heard Remy talking about it with the elder while they were discussing rare potions, and now Carl's breath weapon had given her a chance to obtain it. The 6-meter-tall form of a war beast enhanced chaos badger charged through the battle, ignoring the blades that bounced off the eternal lightning barrier over her hide. She grabbed the flower into her space and mentally planted it, hoping that she hadn't injured the roots with her haphazard transplantation. Then she turned to face the enemy. 5 men turned to face her as the badger unwittingly put herself between them and Alicia. Kara smirked at them, her scarred face making it much more frightening. Then laughed as Carl's claws tore the arms off one of them from behind before the rest of the body was stomped upon and pulverized using the massive weight of an immortal world dragon and crushing blow. A barrage of chaos blasts flew from Kara toward her enemies, who found themselves trapped between an impossibly large dragon and a feral badger. Then the flaming meteor strikes started as Hawk got into position to control the battlefield from above. No words were exchanged as the battle turned into a slaughter, with the attackers forced into a smaller defensive circle, unable to do anything but defend as their attacks proved mostly ineffective against these new combatants. Even the paladins were gloating as Carl's eternal lightning kept the few strikes that made it past their defenses from causing actual injury, and the consecrated ground effect from their new blades constantly damaged the enemies. They really had picked the perfect companions for this fight. Chapter 1533, The Better Part of Valor. The surviving sect members exchanged glances, then activated various defensive items that teleported them away, leaving nothing to fight, and a very disappointed Ray, who only saw one body that couldn't be resurrected, and Carl had already turned it into a modern art exhibition. "How is everyone?" Carl asked as he transformed back to human. Well, as human as he got. That beard was getting out of control, and he noticed that his fingernails were now shiny black and as hard as blades. "We've lost at least 20 young immortals. Soul damage too severe for a resurrection. I don't know about the others." Jean replied in a tired voice as he lay on the ground utterly spent. Carl nodded. I will call out a specialist. Or is Brother Chin here somewhere? Brother Chin is dead. Carl looked around in the tiny world and settled on Lotus. She was the only one he knew for certain could do the job. What's up, boss? Oh, this isn't good. The little cleric immediately transformed into Tree of Life form and rustled her branches in concern as the dead failed to raise. They've taken soul damage. Resurrection isn't going to work. But you have rebirth, don't you? To start them over in a new body? Lotus branches wobbled as she nodded. Yes, but they will be children. There isn't enough soul left for it to resurrect as anything immortal rank. Do it. Better children than dead. Jean and Alicia watched in awe as the soul damaged began to vanish, their bodies turning to pure energy before reappearing under the branches of the healing tree as small children. Compared to the soul energy of an immortal, these royal and monarch-rank children were only a fraction of a percent as strong. But that was all that was lingering around those who could not be resurrected by the immortal rank dark elven priestesses. The process went on for half an hour, with Carl keeping implacable and a mana pylon active so that Lotus didn't exhaust herself with the effort. That's everyone with any lingering soul. 9 out of 22. She was clearly dejected by the failure. But if the soul was entirely destroyed, you couldn't expect them to be reborn. That was the truly cruel nature of the immortal worlds. Lotus transformed back and slumped into the grass next to Alicia. Then her eyes went wide and she rolled over to snuggle up next to the elemental. Oh, so warm. This is nice. If only you were furry. She mumbled before promptly falling asleep. Carl shrugged at the woman's confused expression. Just let her rest, she's earned it. I will explain later. In this world, a human of Lotus power level was basically trash tier. If it wasn't for her extremely rare skills, her actions would have been seen as something akin to having a stranger's dog just jump on your lap. The elemental didn't know where Carl had gotten her from, though she suspected that she was from a mortal world. The rebirth spell wasn't one that she was familiar with, but she knew the concept. Rebuild the soul from scraps and put it into a body that was suitable to the remaining power. A second chance at life that came at the cost of your immortal lifetime of achievements. Some particularly paranoid sorts would actually set up necromantic magic of the same sort, where they trapped a portion of their soul and created an automatic array to have it recreate them if the rest of their soul was destroyed. It also gave them a better link to the world, so they could be resurrected a much longer time after they had died. Creepy but effective. We need to get moving. Their elders of that sect are going to be here soon to get the bodies. They will have felt the deaths, and we need to be somewhere that is not here. Just in case someone's personal disciple is among the dead. Not intervening in the fight definitely wasn't going to stop them from wiping out the whole group if someone tried to stop them from rescuing their protege. Or worse, if Soul Siphon had killed them permanently. The Blade of Champions was happy to take the vital energy of immortals and mortals alike. So there were definitely going to be some who were difficult to resurrect. I will move Lotus back to her own bed and we can go. It's better that I don't bring her to the clan as a mortal. She can come visit when she reaches immortality. She's still young and from a mortal world, but she will get there. Alicia smiled as she had an epiphany. She's a green dragon cleric, isn't she? The way that she immediately gravitated to the warm spot to nap, she has to be. A green dragon cleric. Right in one. The elemental giggled. Green dragon clerics are always funny. Absolutely unhinged even when they're not stoned out of their minds. You haven't lived until you have tried their unique blend of relaxing incense. There is nothing quite like it. Carl nodded. The incense isn't quite as potent as their so-called meditation-inducing cigarettes. But it's not bad. It actually keeps the house smelling rather fresh. Then he opened a portal back to the clan located directly in front of the Alchemy Hall steps. Why are we going to the Alchemy Hall? Alicia whispered. Because I don't know where the Healer's Hall is. I have enough healing and regeneration magic of my own that I haven't seen a need to visit it. The elemental rolled her eyes, but before they could go anywhere, a group of elders and white-robed healers were rushing over. They had been informed that the group was carrying bodies back and intended to save as many as possible, not realizing that Carl's group had already done most of what they would be able to. Clear the way, clear the way. Wait, why are there children? Is that Brother Chin? Why is he tiny? The white dragon in question flapped up to Carl's shoulder so he could answer without looking up. Soul damage. But Carl found a green dragon cleric to cast rebirth. Now I am small again. Does that mean I get to go to school? The other healer laughed. And terrorize the other children with your demands for perfection. I think not. Chapter 1534, Tiny Dragons. Brother Chin laughed a squeaky noise from a half-meter long dragon whelp. But it will be glorious. Think how much more motivated they will be when they've got an outperforming peer to challenge them. You dare call yourself their peer? You're nearly 200 years old. Scan me. That's not what my body age says. The healer looked to Carl for assistance, but he just shrugged. I don't see the issue here. I've got a baby dragon. Chin laughed hysterically, and a wave of magic that felt like divine amusement rumbled through the clouds, making everyone who was caught by surprise put up defensive barriers. What did you do? The gods rarely notice anything we do, but that's the second time since you arrived that they have responded to your actions. Carl shrugged. Well, I am an avatar of the world dragon. That makes me a bit closer to the gods than most, right? The healer looked skeptical. Carl wasn't even a cleric, how strong could his faith be? Carl felt a poke on his back, and a young man in black robes handed him a note. You know, I don't even have to open this to know what it says. Carl joked. Really? Yep. See, it says that Wait, I thought that this was a message from the Black Dragon's avatar. Never mind, carry on. The boy ran off while Carl read through the letter. It seems that the elders have awarded us clan credits for the rescue. That was faster than expected. 50 points split evenly between the 4 members of the rescue team for managing to recover so many of the immortals from a dire situation without provoking an ongoing conflict. Apparently the other sex elders have already been to the battlefield and have collected their dead. Carl explained to everyone watching. 12.5 each? That's quite the reward. Not that you haven't earned it. Most of these rescue missions are 3 to 5 credits per person, and that's already a fairly significant sum to trade for necessities. One of the young immortals they had resurrected noted. Jean nodded. The goods that we got from the mission other than the one that got us ambush sell for an average of about 2 credits per person. What did you even find that provoked that sort of response anyhow? Ironically, nothing even as good as what Kara found when you came to rescue us. She is the one that plucked the Chaos Lily, right? It didn't go to one of the dead immortals from that sect. She got it. Carl agreed with emotion for the dragon to continue. We got a fire lotus, another elemental flower used in alchemical creations. It sells to the clan for 50 credits, so it's certainly a valuable resource. But don't make the mistake of thinking that they would have actually let us leave if we turned it over. We would just die poor. That's the natural order of things. The dead don't need their loot. I'm glad that you made it through. Now I wonder if there were casualties that I might have known? I assume that there will be funerals to attend? Jean nodded. They will do a group funeral for those who didn't have enough soul energy left to be resurrected or reborn. Some of the others might be upset about the childish rebirth, but in a way that's actually better than being reborn in a full-size body with a damaged soul. It can take centuries to recover a damaged soul in an adult body. But in the body of a child, it will naturally improve as you grow up. The trade-off is that the body doesn't hold your old power level, so you have to start all over and not just repair the soul. Everyone will gather for the funeral ceremony at midnight tonight if you wish to attend. However, I think that the ones you have met are actually all alive. Nyan is over there, as she was resurrected normally by the elves. Jeff was reborn, I think, and Brother Chin is on your shoulder. Where is Argoth? Dana asked, referring to the werewolf warrior who was their tank. Not with us. He was delayed in the trial ground, so he wasn't involved in the incident and may still be fine. The elders have gone looking for him. Dana let out a sigh of relief. At least they hadn't lost anyone familiar this time. Though that was only because they didn't know more than a half-dozen of the nearly 50 members of the group. Dana went to check on Nyan, who didn't seem like the sort who would do well with this sort of trauma, only to find the cat girl cradling something in her arms hidden under her coat. Nyan hissed at her as she approached and Dana growled back, which seemed to snap Nyan out of her protective instincts. Sorry. I got distracted feeling all maternal. One of the reborn was a feline beastkin? Nyan shook her head and opened her coat to reveal a small blue divine lightning dragon, barely more than hatchling-sized. Jeff was sleeping in the soft cloth and she quickly closed the wrap before the light woke him up. If he had regressed that much, it was an extremely close call for him during the battle. Only the barest scrap of his soul had survived the attack and lingered on his body. Well, he might be cranky if we wake him up, but I'm not gonna steal your baby dragon from you. It looks like Carl has gained one as well. Nyan looked up and giggled. Oh, Brother Chin is going to be insufferable now that he's tiny. He was a healing prodigy as an actual child, and now that he has a second chance to learn skills and rebuild his power, he will be even faster. Dana winked at her. Just wait. I have a plan. Now that they're starting from nothing again, we can influence the system to give them an improved class. We can make a bigger, better Jeff and an even more proud Chin. Chapter 1535 to Influence Classes. Wait, you have a way to influence class selections? Nyan asked, catching the attention of everyone nearby. Of course. There is a trick to it. If you have certain skills, when it comes to the breakpoints where you want to advance, you just need an opportunity that will let you advance. For dragons, they should just have to go to an advancement trial in a dragon god temple to get a chance to upgrade their class. Just go to an advancement trial at the temple. One of the dragons muttered sarcastically. Oh? Is there not one at your temple? Talk to Carl, he can make one. He is an avatar of the world dragon after all. If anyone can influence the system, it's him. Dana retorted. Carl didn't know why everyone was suddenly looking at him. They must want him to make gear again. What? I already told you that there is a waiting list for gear. The elders laughed at Carl's annoyed tone, and the head healer placed a hand on Carl's shoulder. It's not like that. Your Dana Mage informed us that you have the skill to create a class advancement trial at the Dragon God's Temple. That is what everyone is getting excited about, because while immortal rank classes might be better than the ones in the mortal realm, if you just compare the skills, a base class is still a base class. The warriors are still hyper-focused on their combat abilities. A base immortal cleric only really knows how to heal. So the chance to make an advancement in their class is a huge opportunity for them, and the World Dragon is in charge of this world system. As his avatar, you are the logical choice to help us out. That makes sense. And I do actually have a skill that might help as long as the temple is compatible. You see, the creation of that sort of trial is more of a suggestion on my part and largely up to the willingness of the gods to actually permit it and grant the class upgrade. If they're not on good terms with the one in charge of the temple, you may not be able to enter. If they're not completely compatible with the one overseeing the temple, you might get strange hybrid options. There's really no way to say until I finish it and someone goes in to test it. But the most important part is that you need the qualifications. If you don't have any skills that don't come from your class and your constitution is still the standard one for your species, the chances that you will actually be able to change your class are low. The cleric smiled. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. We do have the skill library here, so most of the older immortals have added a half-dozen specialty skills to support their desired combat style beyond what their base class gives them. If having those skills will help them get a class more in line with their desires, that is even better. The guidance of the skills would only reinforce their strengths, and that is precisely what they are hoping for from a new class. So if you would be so kind as to go to the World Dragon Temple and see if you can add an advancement trial to the system stones, we would greatly appreciate it. And compensate you appropriately, of course. Carl nodded slowly. If they had system stones, they shouldn't need a trial. However, it was quite possible that they were partially inactive and nobody had the right skills or knowledge to turn them back on. That seemed to be a running theme with the system. It was great news for Carl. They would give him all sorts of rewards for turning back on a function that was already there, and he wouldn't have to spend days and days making an entirely new trial instance. Or so he thought. When the cleric dragged him to the temple, Carl realized that it was not an active temple to the World Dragon, but a historical relic preserved with magic. The temple was in ruins, nobody ever set foot in it, and the system stones were at least half destroyed by whatever battle had shattered the temple. So not only was he going to have to make a trial instance, he might just have to get permission to repair the clan's relic in the process so that the location Was right. First things first, I need to see if there is still enough lingering holy magic from the temple to activate the spell, Carl warned. He focused on the system stones, checking to see how much of their magic was still intact. But what he found was that they were not only entirely different than the ones that he knew, they weren't even written in the same runic language. The runecrafting of the immortal realm was not the same as that of the mortal realm. The potency was on an entirely different level, and he had simply been making do with the runes that he knew. Making a system trial for immortals would require extensive research into the runic language of the immortal worlds, and then he would be able to start and pray that it was enough. However, there were dozens of other temples around the clan compound. Tens of thousands of immortals lived here, and they worshipped a wide variety of deities, so they had constructed small shrines and temples all over the city as well as in many of the homes. The vast majority of them were to the dragon gods or the human gods. However, there were a few more niche ones as well as a spider goddess temple in one corner of the city. Those small shrines seemed to have formed a network of divine favor that Carl could sense when he interacted with what was left of the system stones. Perhaps he only had to make the trial and let the existing infrastructure do the heavy lifting. It was worth a shot. I have never done this in the immortal worlds before, so I can't guarantee that the version I know is going to be strong enough to let all of you advance. If necessary, I will put in the research and make an improved version. I trust the clan to have the resources. The cleric laughed. Oh, I suppose that we do. With a legacy as long as ours, even if our power is low, we do have quite a bit of esoteric knowledge collected. Is there a preferred spot? I didn't know that the World Dragon Temple was a protected relic of the clan, and I wouldn't want to disturb the grounds. If there is a good spot nearby, it might work just as well as in the old temple itself. The white dragon frowned. I think it's better that you do it at the temple. You can repair it if you would like. Assuming that you can step through the barrier. None of us can. It was set by a supreme rank disciple of the World Dragon. So it's not a clan barrier to protect the temple? Yes and no. He was formerly the clan leader, but he has moved on after his successor rose in power and took over the duties. Carl frowned. That sounded like a very sanitized version of events that most likely included a coup or rebellion within the clan. If it was a peaceful transition, why did the disciple leave a ruined temple in a protective barrier that nobody else could break? Or was it that they were unwilling to after he was gone? Carl decided that the history lesson could wait for later and took a step toward the barrier, intending to test its response to his presence. Everyone held their breath and waited, each expecting some sort of reaction from the barrier, which let Carl through as if it didn't exist. He walked over to the temple compound and began to inspect the rubble. There were signs of divine energy here, but not the same sort as what he would expect in a temple. It was more likely that this place had been attacked by a demigod. Look there on your right. The altar is still intact. Tian noted. Carl moved a bit of rubble and revealed what looked like a stone coffin with a dragon design on the top, along with a shield whose emblem looked like a dragonkin flanked by a human and a lamia on a black and white background. Carl thought back to his theology lessons and didn't recall anything of that nature in his lessons. It must be related to whoever's sarcophagus this was. The black and white split background was the symbol of the Darklight host, which gave Carl a good feeling about this place, even if he didn't recognize the personal heraldry. If this temple was built as a memorial to a member of the Darklight host who was a strong follower of the World Dragon, there might be even more treasures hidden here for him to uncover. The mention of loot woke Kara up from her post-battle nap, and she eagerly began to survey their new acquisition. It was a good place, lots of magic, plenty of system influence on everything, and it was covered in runes that she didn't recognize. That must mean that it was extra valuable and worth trying to rebuild just to see where all the runes went. Broken loot was just broken loot after all. It would never be as good as intact loot. Carl tried not to laugh at the badger's train of thought as he explored the ruins. It looked like nothing had been touched since it was abandoned, as he could see scraps of cloth and paper under the fallen stone. Then he saw the book sitting next to the ruins of the podium that had been behind the altar. That must be a holy book of some sort. Carefully he lifted the ancient manuscript from the ruins and blew the dust from the cover. For a moment he just stared at the cover, and then the runes began to shift in front of his eyes. System translation function updated. Language pack unlocked. Immortal Worlds. Carl felt Dana gasp as she got the same message, and he began to read the title. Ceremonial Hymns Volume 1. Well, it might not be a religious text in the strictest sense of the word, but the prayers of the Red Dragons were often battle chants and songs, so it might be incredibly valuable as well as educating. Carefully he opened the cover and read through the first song, which was a Red Dragon battle chant that he was already familiar with. It was one of Thor and Tessa's favorites because it was about crushing your enemies underfoot. He flipped the page and found that the texture of the paper changed. The first one had been fine vellum as expected of a hymnal. This one was glossy paper, inferior in quality and covered in pictures. Erotic pictures. Someone had removed the pages of the hymnal and replaced the contents with a collection of lewd comics. Kara laughed hysterically as she envisioned the scene. Someone had been sitting in these pews, most likely with their back to the wall, flipping dutifully through the hymnal but actually reading smut. That was just too good. Give me that book. I want it. For reasons. Opal demanded. Seriously, it's soaked in holy magic. Carl shrugged and passed her the book. He could see more with the same cover under the stones, so they had likely been stored in the podium between sermons. Perhaps the next one would be intact? Before opening the next, Carl turned the book to check the paper. This one was all the same delicate pages, and when he slowly flipped through it, the whole thing was various church songs, mostly in common, but with some intended to be sung in draconic or demonic languages. Now that was an interesting development. Who would have thought that the World Dragon's temple sang in demonic? He was a dragon god, and while his system did extend to them, Carl wouldn't have expected his temple to cater to their languages. Chapter 1537, to read later. Carl put one of the intact books in his inventory as well to read later and continued his search through the rubble. The back rooms would more likely have valuable tomes than the front unless there had been books stored in the pews. But those were likely to be the same songbooks that he already had. The back of the temple looked like it had taken much heavier damage than the front. The blocks were mostly shattered and not just collapsed, while there were signs of burning as well. That might be secondary damage, the result of a lamp or fireplace being active when the building was destroyed. But it also looked like more attention had been paid to this area, and someone had cleaned it out of valuables before the barrier was erected. There were empty shelves in the rubble, the desk drawers had been removed and stacked to sit empty in the weather. Very orderly, not like the place was ransacked, but like someone had deliberately come to remove the valuables for safekeeping. That's a shame. I was hoping for books. Remy sighed. Me too. There is so much that could have been learned here. It's not a total loss though. There are a lot of runes here for me to study, and they're in a whole new language. I got the system update, which is a great start, but I still need some practice with them. Carl spent a few more minutes searching, but the temple had obviously been cleaned of valuables long ago, which left him only a few clues, including a wall painting that had survived mostly intact, to guess how wealthy the temple had been. It didn't look promising. What it showed was two people in black and white robes flying while standing on a sword. That was pretty cool. But not a sign of great wealth. I want a flying sword. Kara insisted. Being able to relax on the sword while traveling would be even better than just flying by herself. We can work on that later. After all, every immortal could fly once they gained enough power. It wasn't exactly a huge accomplishment. The ones with wings and skills were just faster at it. Alright, I think that I know what I need to do. There are enough temples here that I just need a clear spot. If nobody else can enter the temple grounds for the World Dragon, then I will make the entrance to the trial in the yard outside the barrier. Give me a day or two to prepare the trial stone. There is quite a bit that goes into it. He explained. Will you be starting on that now? The White Dragon asked. I have a punishment detail at the Alchemy Hall to finish first. The dragon laughed. In that case, you can stay right here. I will get you transferred from Elder Socrates' supervision to mine. This is a project to help the entire clan as well, and none of the elders would argue against it. Besides, you're almost done your time, aren't you? Carl nodded. Yes. I only had 50 hours and I've been staying in the Alchemy Hall full-time. In that case, if you finish your hours, we will pay you as a regular craftsman for the rest. That's likely going to need a budget approval given the usual rates for a runecrafter. But I don't see them denying it. If nothing else, the church will cover the cost. Carl sighed. Don't worry too much about it. Given my position, I feel a bit bad about charging the church for repairing a function that should be on a holy temple. There is a partial set of system stones here, and while they are damaged and written in a different language than the ones I'm familiar with, they should have had that function when they were intact. So I will try to recreate that ability for the clan as they once had it available to them. There was no way that he could recreate a full set of system stones at the immortal rank. That magic was way beyond his power level. He should be able to make a proper set for the mortal world now, though. Anything that they were missing before would be present now, and Carl briefly considered where he should put them in the tiny world. That could come later once he was finished here. The baby dragons would want it when they were hatched, and an immortal ranked set of system stones might not be the same as a set designed for immortals to us, but it would let them pick their classes, he assumed. Alright. While I'm certain that the ladies of the Alchemy Hall will be upset, I will start on the project here first, and anyone who wanted to place a custom equipment order can come to me and wait for my work to be finished. Carl. Agreed. Wonderful. The clan will be overjoyed to learn that there is a chance for advanced immortal grade class options. Carl nodded and sat down next to the ruins of the system stones, then sent Dana a mental message. What's all this with an immortal grade class? Did your skills change when you advanced? Of course. There is a whole separate section for whether I'm casting them with immortal energy or mortal mana. Do you not see that on your skills? Nope. I don't even get real damage output listings for most of them. They just scale with power input. But then most of my class skills are buffs with defined details, and the shared skills from the beasts are the ones that come with minimal details. So it might not be a class-related issue, but one related to the fact that I am technically borrowing the abilities. Well, your class is strange anyhow. If they started trying to define the damage limits and abilities of Kara and Ray, it would just turn into a wall of text, so it's likely better that they didn't. Ray laughed at the thought. The mathematical calculations for how much her skills did at every stack and stage of predation would fill a whole textbook. It was better to just accept that the damage level was yes and go stab something. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.